On a stormy night in the small town of Shadow Ridge, 13-year-old Ethan's life was about to change forever. The wind howled like a wild beast, and the thunder shook the earth as though warning of an unseen terror. It was the kind of night that made the hairs on your neck stand up before you could even figure out why. Ethan was home alone for the first time. His parents had gone to a family gathering in a nearby town, leaving him with one simple rule: don't open the door to strangers. A rule so basic it didn't seem important to Ethan, but that night it would become the most important thing in his life. The storm outside seemed to get worse with every passing hour. The wind rattled the windows and rain poured against the house in sheets. Inside, Ethan sank into the couch, playing his game, distracted by the storm's noise. But as time passed, an unsettling feeling crept over him. The thunder rumbled, and the house creaked as though it was groaning under the weight of the storm. It was just past 10 p.m. when it happened. The doorbell rang. Ding dong. Ethan's heart skipped a beat. Who could be out there at this hour in such a storm? He glanced at the clock on the wall. No one should be there. Everyone in town was likely inside, seeking shelter from the storm. The doorbell rang again, louder this time. Ethan's pulse quickened. His mind raced. Maybe it was a neighbor, lost in the storm, needing help. But something deep inside him urged caution. He crept to the door, keeping the chain lock on, and peered through the small crack, hoping to see something familiar. "Who is it?" Ethan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The voice on the other side was low and shaky. "I'm lost. The storm. I need to use your phone. Please help me." There was something unsettling about the voice. It sounded desperate even, afraid. But the warning his parents had drilled into him repeated in his mind. Don't open the door to strangers. Still, the voice persisted. I just need to get to the next town. The storm's too strong. I'll only be a minute. Please. Ethan's heart began to race. The storm outside grew louder and his mind began to panic. Something wasn't right. His gut told him not to open the door, but curiosity pulled him closer to the crack. He peered outside just enough to catch a glimpse of a figure, hunched and moving oddly, as though something was wrong. Ethan stepped back, his breath catching in his throat. His instincts screamed at him to get away. But before he could react, the doorbell rang again. Ding dong. This wasn't normal. Ethan froze when he heard a creak from the back of the house. The back door was open. The man was inside. Panicked, Ethan bolted to his parents' room and locked the door behind him. He shoved furniture against it, trying to block it as best he could. Outside, the storm raged on, the wind howling like a living thing as if it too was waiting. Then came the heavy footsteps. They started slow, dragging across the floor, but they were getting closer. Ethan's breath caught as the footsteps stopped, right outside the door. Then came a soft, desperate knock. "Open up. I just want to use your phone. Please, let me in." The man's voice was frantic, and it sent a chill through Ethan's bones. Ethan's mind raced. He scanned the room for anything to protect himself. His eyes fell on the old hunting rifle his grandfather had left in the closet. His hands shook as he grabbed it, pulling it from its place. The door started to splinter as the man outside forced his way in. Ethan's heart pounded harder, each beat matching the sound of the breaking door. With trembling hands, he loaded the rifle, the sharp click of the bullets echoing in the silent room. The storm outside seemed to hold its breath. As the door cracked open, Ethan aimed the rifle at the opening. The man froze. His hands slowly rose into the air in surrender. The storm outside seemed to quiet for a moment, almost as if it too were watching. Ethan didn't speak. His heart raced, his fingers tight around the rifle. He didn't move, staring at the man in front of him. The stranger's eyes were wide with fear, But there was something else in them. Something that made Ethan's skin crawl. Just when Ethan thought he might have to pull the trigger, he heard the sound of sirens. The neighbors had called the sheriff after hearing Ethan's cries for help. Within moments, Mr. Carter, the closest neighbor, arrived with the sheriff. The man was handcuffed and dragged away. When the sheriff checked the man's bag, they found rope and duct tape. The man had planned something far worse. Later, the sheriff explained that the man was a known criminal who had terrorized families during storms in the past. But the worst part was the twisted grin that spread across the man's face when he was arrested. Ethan would never forget that smile. Years went by, but the memory of that storm and the man at the door would haunt Ethan forever. Every year, when the storm clouds gathered again, they never seemed as dangerous to the people of Shadow Ridge. They all knew Ethan's story. They knew the truth behind the stranger in the storm, and no one would ever forget what happened that night.